wasted 20 years of my life working jobs I hated. And today, I'm gonna show you exactly what that cost me and how you can avoid making the same mistake. So, let me show you what I mean. About 3 years ago, I went to Poland for my father's funeral, and his wife showed me something that he had been building. Above his house, there was an extra room that he built, half finished, no decoration, just bare walls, and next to the house, an entire apartment, also half finished. The plan was to rent it out and to earn passive income, financial freedom. Now, unfortunately, he died before he completed either one. And I stood there looking at these unfinished dreams and I thought, well, he loved to build. At least he died doing what he loved. But there was also another thought that I can't quite shake. He should have started this 20 years earlier. He simply ran out of time. And standing there, staring at these half-finished walls, I realized something that made my chest tighten. I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm 44 years old, and I might die with my dream half-finished too. Not because I haven't started, I have, but because I started so late that I might run out of time before I finish what I'm building. And I look at photos from, a decade ago sometimes, and I barely recognize myself. Not just physically, though sure, there are some differences, but that's not really what I'm talking about. There's something in the eyes. There's something missing, like a sharpness, an energy, this curiosity that used to feel, endless. And I can't quite pinpoint when it left. It certainly wasn't dramatic. There was no specific moment I can remember, no clear breaking point. I think it just faded, routines and obligations. But this quiet accumulation of years spent doing things that, maybe didn't matter as much as I thought they did. By the way, if this resonates with you, consider subscribing. More videos like this are coming. So let me give you a number, 20 years. I started working when I was 18. I'm 44 now. That's actually more than 20 years of my life. Poof, gone. But there are moments when I ask myself, what do I actually have to show for it? I do have a house, but it's technically owned by the bank. I have a wonderful wife, a dog. Those things matter. I'm not dismissing them, but they hardly have anything to do with my job. But 20 years of commuting, of meetings, of performance reviews, of pretending to care about things I didn't care about. 20 years of slowly becoming someone I didn't recognize. Now, there are days when I commute to work and I just scream inside. Not out loud, obviously, just internally. The entire day ahead of me is going to be wasted doing work I don't enjoy, work I actually hate. And I've been doing this for 2 decades, and it's like, how did I let this happen? When you're young, the rest of your life feels like an eternity. You're 20, you think you have something like 70 years left. It feels infinite. So working for a few years, no big deal. You have time. But the rest of your life, it's a trap. It's not as long as you think. And even if it was, things change as you age. And I'm not talking about just biology. I'm talking about your life, especially if you get married, have kids, get a mortgage. Your freedom sort of shrinks. Your options narrow. Your energy disappears. And when you're 20, you can't understand the value of time. It's impossible. But when you reach 40, you can sort of feel it. You don't count years forward anymore. You count years remaining. And that sort of changes everything. Now, the worst part, it isn't even the time that I lost. It's what work did to my body. You see, when I was 30 years old, I started getting chest pains, high blood pressure, work stress, the kind of pressure that digs into your heart and doesn't really let go. And I felt like I had been hit by a bus. And the reason? Because work was my only source of income and I couldn't mess it up. I couldn't afford to fail. If I did, I risked starvation, homelessness. Well, that's how it felt in my head anyway. But it was the kind of fear that doesn't just live in your mind. It moves into your body. It sort of takes root and it grows and it manifests physically. And I never fully recovered. I still carry this sort of emotional wound from that experience. I'm cautious now. I'm always watching myself, making sure I never let myself get into that state again. And actually starting my side hustle, my business, it helped a lot. Because while it technically meant more work, it reduced the stress of having one income source. So, for example, today, if they fire me, great. I would have more time for my business. But back then, I didn't have that option. I was trapped, and my body paid the price. Here's what I find cruel about that. I didn't feel miserable enough to escape. I wasn't in acute pain. I wasn't suffering dramatically. I was just numb enough to stay, comfortable enough not to risk change, uncomfortable enough never to feel satisfied. It sort of felt like the perfect trap. And the thought that terrifies me more than anything, more than death, honestly, it's this. What if I spend the next 20 years still doing this? What if I'm 64, still commuting, still screaming inside, still wasting my life? That thought keeps me up at night. You want to know what's strange? If you ask my friends or family today, they would probably tell you that I'm sort of ruthless, not in a cruel way, in execution. If I decide to write a book, a few weeks later, that book gets published. If I decide it should become a bestseller, I make that happen. When I decide to do things, they usually get done. People around me notice this. At work, at home, in my business, my friends ask me for advice when they're thinking about starting projects, and I tell them exactly what to do. And most of the time, they never follow through. They overanalyze, they hesitate, they wait for the perfect moment. Now, I don't ask people for advice about my plans anymore. I just do. When I was younger, that was different. I needed the opinion of others. I needed validation, permission. I needed someone to tell me I wasn't making a mistake. And today, I don't see actions as wins or failures. Executing always leads to good outcome, as long as you learn from your mistakes. You know, it's like that saying, you fail, you adapt, and you overcome. But when you're young, you tend to overanalyze your options, which means you never get things done. And that paralysis, that hesitation, cost me years. And the reason I'm so ruthless today is because I realized life is short. Now, obviously, I've always known it, like, intellectually. But when you reach 40, you can sort of feel it. And that's the maturity that I wish I had at 20. And here's what haunts me. The person I am now, this ruthless, focused, relentless version of myself, could have existed 20 years ago. You know, all that potential, all that energy, all that time. I had it when I was 20, but I wasted it caring about what people thought. I wasted it waiting for permission, waiting for the right moment, waiting for someone to tell me it was okay. And I told myself a lie for decades. The same lie I think everyone tells themselves. The rest of your life is an eternity. You can work for a few years, no big deal. You have time. But time, it doesn't open up. It closes, you know? When you're 25, you have no obligations. You have no house loans, no responsibilities. You're free to go wherever you want. You can adapt to anything. You can go abroad for a year just for the experience. You can read a book for hours without anyone needing you. You can spend entire days exploring new ideas, new skills, new possibilities. But when you're in your 40s, you don't have those options anymore because you work, you have responsibilities, and your energy is depleted by 8 p.m. You have to plan and schedule your energy because you don't have as much as you did when you were 25. Personally, I can't read a book for hours anymore. I just don't have the time or the energy. Which isn't to say I can't learn new skills today. I can, and I do regularly. And I think AI is the future, for example, so I'm fully invested in that. But what helps is that I have focus now. You know, interest, purpose. I don't see AI as a consumer. I see it as a business owner. Instead of saying, oh, that's cool, I ask, how can I use this for my business? And I test things on this channel, for example. That's the shift. And I could have made that shift 20 years ago. And here's the second lie people tell themselves when they hit 40. Oh, I'm too old for this. And that's nonsense. When you reach 40, You have maturity, discipline, experience. You can make quick decisions for yourself. You can prioritize ruthlessly. It's not over at 40 or 50 or even 60. You just have a different perspective, but you don't have unlimited time. And the energy you had at 20, the ability to stay up all night exploring ideas, the mental sharpness, it's gone. Like, not completely, but diminished, and you can't get that back. So I remember that I was just a regular teen in my 20s. I went to parties, I dated, I enjoyed life like there was no tomorrow. I had that teen energy, endless, boundless energy that I could have used for something practical. But being young, you tend to pick the easier, more fun options. And relaxing on the beach was always the easier option compared to starting a business. And today, I'm the complete opposite. Like, don't get me wrong, I value relaxation. I find time for that, but it's not the end goal. It's rest, it's recovery, and it's the energy you need to build momentum in your life. Now, my life revolves around my videos now, like 24/7, from the moment I wake up to the moment I close my eyes at night. And by the way, that's not hustle culture. I'm not saying that. I don't believe in hustle culture. I don't work all the time, but I always have my priorities in mind. I can spend quality time with my wife, with my friends, and yet maintain this laser-sharp focus on what I want in life. Now that focus, it just didn't exist when I was 20 because I was sort of scattered, unfocused, confused, and I was sort of waiting, I think. So what changed? Well, I've been making YouTube videos since 2007. Just when it launched, I was hooked from the beginning, but I didn't take it seriously until something like 2020. That's when I saw the possibilities, the potential, and what finally drove my dedication to 100%. Well, I started making more and more money from my side hustles, and my wife sort of noticed, and one day she just told me, start a business. And I don't know why, but when she said it, it just became so clear, so obvious, like I had been waiting for permission this entire time, and she finally gave it to me. And I started my business a year ago, and I think I should have started it at 20. I think that's like my advice for everyone, honestly. That's part of the reason I wanted to make this video, to stop you from reaching this conclusion late in life. Because when I started my business, something really shifted for me. I realized something that sort of rewired my entire understanding of myself. You see, society turned me into a corporate wage slave. But when I started making YouTube videos, I discovered that I'm actually a creative person. And somehow school beat that out of me, but not fully, because YouTube sort of awakened the part of me that I thought was dead. And when I started my business, I realized that I actually have an entrepreneurial spirit. And I think honestly that most people are probably creative entrepreneurs. They just don't know it because society beat it out of them. It programs you to follow a specific path, get a job, go to the bank, get a house loan. It's almost expected of us. And that's a trap on its own. Like, if I had known this about myself in my 20s, everything would have been so different. I certainly wouldn't have had chest pains at 30, or student loans hanging over me for years, for decades, or a house loan that I couldn't actually afford, but got anyway because that's what you're supposed to do. But I didn't know because I was waiting, always waiting for permission, waiting for someone to tell me it's okay to be who I actually was. And when my friends and family saw me making these YouTube videos in the early days, they sort of laughed. Like, they weren't teasing me, but they sort of looked at it as a fun hobby. They didn't see it as a passion. And the worst part, it affected me. That's kind of a human thing, isn't it? We want to be recognized and validated by others. But today I have a very, very different outlook. I just don't care. There are some YouTubers, especially younger ones, who are afraid to say that they're YouTubers. They're embarrassed. They're worried about how people will react. I'm not. I'm a YouTuber. I'm proud of that passion. I say no to Christmas party at work now because that is a waste of time. I used to go because it was expected of me. Today, I don't care what's expected of me. It's my life, and I'm running out of time to live the way I want. Some people say thinking about your regrets is a waste of time, and I don't think you can avoid it. Regret is a real thing, but you can flip it. You can use regret as fuel to not make the same mistake again, and I do. Today, like I said, I'm ruthless about that. But here's the uncomfortable truth I have to admit to myself. I have gray hairs now. I have wrinkles. My body isn't as strong as it used to be. It bruises more easily. It takes longer to recover from injuries. That's just reality. And you don't notice when you are in your 20s. You think your body will start to wither when you're in your 60s or 70s. It's just not true. It starts earlier than you think. So when I look at my reflection in the mirror, my first thought is, who is that old geezer looking at me? But then I think, you know what? It's now or never. I don't know how my mind and body will behave 10 years from now. Now, some would say regret is pointless, but I don't think so. Regret is part of the journey that led me to where I am today, and it's a great place. I have conviction, strength, relentless focus on what I want. Do I wish I had it earlier? Sure, but maybe, just maybe, it wasn't possible without all that regret. Now, to quote one of my favorite movies of all time, Vanilla Sky, the sweet ain't as sweet without the bitter. And I think about my father's house in Poland sometimes, those half-finished rooms, that unfinished apartment he loved to build. Like me, like him, I'm building something. And maybe it will only be half-finished when I die, but as cliche as it sounds, life is about the journey, not the destination. Yeah, it's corny, but it's the truth. And I'm just getting started. But I lost 20 years. And I can't get them back. I can't recover the mental sharpness I traded for the stability of a paycheck. I can't undo the decade I spent waiting instead of building. But maybe someone watching this can avoid it. If you are in your 20s or 30s watching this, don't do what I did. Don't spend 2 decades screaming inside on your way to work. Don't wait for permission and don't care what people think, because that's the main thing that's holding you back. If you just did what you wanted to do without thinking of other people's opinions, you'd go so far. You don't want to go to college? Don't. You don't want to work in a corporate soul-crushing job? Don't. Because if you do it anyway, if you follow the path society laid out for you instead of the one that you want, you'll regret wasting your life in your 40s. Believe me, I know. Now, most people won't change anything after watching this, but maybe you will. And maybe you'll start today, not tomorrow, not next year, not when things are perfect, today. Because one day you will look in the mirror and you will see an old geezer staring back. Gray hairs, wrinkles, a body that bruises easier than it used to. And you'll ask yourself, what do I have to show for it? Well, don't let the answer be regret. Don't die with your dream half finished. You don't get a second life. You don't get a do-over. So don't spend the first one waiting for permission to live it. As always, thank you for listening. Do me a favor and tap that like button to show your support. Subscribe if you are interested in more content like this. Until next time, stay hungry, relentless, and strong in your journey of escaping wage slavery. Bye.